All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's another amazing episode on tap today. Julian, tell us where we're at.
So, the title of today's episode is The Legacy of 9/11, Nightmare Nation. So, if you listen to our previous episode on the legacy of 9/11, we talked about our personal experiences. So, in this episode, we're going to kind of center on the conspiracy theories that surrounded 9/11.
Important call.
After. So, I'm going to list off 6 different conspiracy theories, and then we're going to kind of unpack some questions and just really unpack the whole thing.
Man.
So, the first conspiracy theory is that the United States government let the September 11th attacks happen. The second is the Twin Towers fell by way of tactical demolition. The third, and this is all random research, this is not in any specific order, but just different things I cobbled together off the internet. The third is the Pentagon was hit by a missile launched from American soil. The fourth is suspected insider trading, claiming that just before 9/11, an extraordinary amount of options, and what an option, or more or less a put option, is basically you can hold a stock and you can bargain on that stock to fall, or bargain on that stock to stay. So obviously the Boeing Airlines.
Did you call that a futures?
No. That it's called a put option.
A put option. Okay.
Yeah,
I've heard
it's
futures.
a stock market instrument which gives the holder or the purchaser of the stock the right to sell the asset at any specified time or date.
Okay.
So put options have been in place, to stop against the fall of a stock, to kind of protect the purchaser of the stock. So basically, some theorists believe that the Wall Street guys somehow got together with who knows who and orchestrated this to just make money.
Yeah, well, there was a lot of activity all on the stock market. There really was.
Yeah. The fifth is air defense stand-down theory, which it's a claim by conspiracy theorists that NORAD, which is the North American Defense Command, issued a stand-down order deliberately so the scrambled fighters would be late to allow the hijacked airplanes to reach their targets without interference. Which, once again, this is all theory. This is not happen. Yeah, this is not what we believe. This is just theory that's out there. The sixth and final one is the Bin Laden tapes, which were basically a series of interviews. Audio and videotapes were released in the years following the 9/11 attacks that were reportedly from Osama bin Laden, saying that he was not the perpetrator of the attacks, And one that came out specifically on September 17th, 2001, in a statement issued on Al Jazeera, which is a broadcast media station.
I think it's still running.
It basically, bin Laden is quoted as saying, "The government of the U.S. has consistently blamed me for being behind the ever attacks on the American soil, which I have not been, and I would like to assure the world that I did not plan the recent attacks." So those are the conspiracy theories. So my first question: is our government or any secret society capable of orchestrating and covering up this level of a national incident?
I think it's kind of almost hard to believe that something this large could have transpired that couldn't have been at least brought down to a smaller level of destruction. And I think what ended up happening is they underestimated the people who obviously perpetrated this massive destruction. When people are on a mission, they have a tendency to have more drive behind them.
Yes.
And the government thinks that they can kind of quell everything because they got all their little octopus arms out there like Hydra, and they can control everything. But when somebody's on a mission and they're hell bent for leather, so to speak, and they want to get things done, you really can't stop them. And especially when they're willing to kill themselves and sacrifice their lives, and the airplanes crashed and all that stuff into the two towers. I think the government knew something was going to transpire. They talk about that, but I don't think they had any idea of the magnitude of what it was. Now you talked about the stand down order. I always was curious about that. When anybody comes anywhere near like New York City, these things are scrambled. When you've got 2 big jets that are running and they're already, those things, one of them would have got shot down, let alone nobody showed up till after they crashed. That's a little strange. Anyway,
yeah.
what do I really know? I mean,
I mean,
I'm an alarmist kind of guy. I get nervous,
and we're just, ladies and gentlemen, we're just theorizing here.
Yes.
Nothing is concrete. Like, we don't know. We weren't there. Like, we were both here in Buffalo, New York at the time, so we're just theorizing. One thing that I was thinking about too, by doing like the notes for this episode, is in any type of tragedy that's on this scale, this tremendous scale, people want to point a finger.
Right.
So that's natural human tendency, that's natural human nature. So I think initially, without knowing exactly who was to blame, and you're thinking about, this is America, there was an attack on the Pentagon, there's a plane crash in the Pentagon, New York City, but everywhere in America, if not the globe, is wondering who did these attacks. Everybody's going to think and have some idea of what they think is happening. Once the first day of the panic, and I guess going back, the panic didn't really stop, but once the extreme alarming panic stops setting in, you're now thinking, who could have done this? So maybe everybody just had their own idea already, and it kind of became like confirmation bias. Now that I believe in this one thing, anything that supports the new data that I get, that's saying that
sort of justifies the theory.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of that
happens even today in 2020.
No, that happens. It's been happening since the dawn of time.
Right. Well, it's been significantly happening since, like in 2001 when this all began. It was, the internet's young.
Yeah.
CNN, Fox, there's a lot of things going on. I mean, people aren't really happy with the status of the two different parties in America. There's conspiracy theories before the airplanes crashed into the two towers.
Yeah.
But the technology, the internet, and the whole 9 yards gave everybody a lot more fodder to play with. And that leads to today. You could almost say that is really the beginning of how all the major changes we've seen in our country. Because people always say, like, the Republicans are always looking for an edge. They always try to cause a bit of a scrum. And with a war, and the people get all uptight and nervous in America, they find an enemy.
The politics of fear.
Politics of fear. They find a common enemy they don't like, and that becomes whatever. And the government knows that, they were trying to take a lot of pressure off themselves, the political situation, by actually, if you got a war, everybody is happy, because, not everybody's happy, but there's a lot more saluting going on. Everybody pledged allegiance to the flag. There's a lot of that.
Definitely the nation is more unified.
Yeah. So it's when it takes the pressure off of what's going on in the home front.
Yes. No. That's definitely a byproduct of war, for good or for ill. And I don't believe that our government would go to such great lengths.
Well, here, I don't think they did go to great lengths. You know what I think is, and I'm sorry to cut you off slightly. No. I think what they, in my opinion, of course, you have to definitely say this because we don't want to look like we're idiots. In my personal opinion, I think they knew something was going to transpire. Their information gave them data that something was going to happen.
But how much data are they getting on a daily basis?
Supposedly they got a boatload of it, but I think they underestimated, as I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, when you're fighting against an adversary that's hell-bent to accomplish something drastic and really prove a point, sometimes we're a bit naive, I mean, this happened during the Republican office.
Yeah.
With the Republican, Bush Jr. was in office at the time, and they're kind of cocky a little bit. They think they know everything. They got their finger on the pulse of everything, but they really don't sometimes.
Okay.
This turned out to be a lot freaking bigger than anybody thought.
But think about this. So, as America, as a nation, we're on our 45th sitting president.
Yes.
So, without knowing the exact numbers, but how many death threats do you think that a sitting president gets?
Oh, probably in a course of 1 4-year term, easily.
Just astronomical number, probably.
Yeah, easily like 5,000-6,000. Yeah. 10,000. It's crazy. Yeah.
So, how many of these threats can they act on? How many of these threats can they weed out? Do they have a process of saying, like...
Of course they do. They're so advanced with their computer systems and all their things they're doing.
You got behavioral scientists, economic scientists, and, a lot of very smart people that understand human behavior going. But at the same time, it could be that one that just slipped through the cracks that could have been scanned off and saying, like, oh, this is just a green level threat or whatever. However, like they whatever levels that they use to classify and say, you know, this is not really a threat that we should worry about. But that could have been the threat. That could have been Al Qaeda. I don't want to take the blame, but also I don't want to just give all the blame, because I'm sure that there's so many threats on about American soil. How do you really weed out and know which one? I'm sure that they have a better system installed in place.
Well, everything pings back and forth between the British and the United States of America. We're tight. We're basically like, you know, the same country in theory when it comes to that level of espionage and all that stuff when it comes to the welfare of both countries and the stability of the world. And things ping back and forth. So they knew something was going to happen. One of the telltale signs that I think really stands out is, and it was filmed, George Jr. was in Florida. I think he was at a school, if I'm not mistaken. Remember, He was at a school, and he was talking to young kids. It was a good PR moment, a good photo op, and somebody came over, whispered in his ear, and then they said that obviously the towers have been attacked. And then he had to look. He was dumbfounded. He sat there. He didn't know how to react. He was thinking about everything that was going on. That gave me, in hindsight, it gave me the impression that it almost as if he was saying in his head, like, holy shit, this wasn't supposed to be this big. Meaning, they knew something was going to happen because they wanted an opportunity to create war. We still have people in Afghanistan and Pakistan still fighting from the results of this. It's the longest standing war we've ever had. It's almost 18 years now, 18 plus years. So that throws me off a little bit.
That is another theory that I came across, and I don't think I put that in my notes, that obviously, and it's one of the bigger ones, that a lot of, people think that America and the UK kind of plotted together to look for an incident to actually invade Saudi Arabia for the oil, being such a...
Well, it wasn't Saudi Arabia. I'm sorry to correct you. I think it was more or less about they wanted the opportunity to go to Iran for the oil.
Yeah.
Iraq.
Pardon me. Iraq.
When they really should have gone to Iran, because remember they were looking for information that said like there's weapons of mass destruction.
Yes.
They went to Iraq because that was the wimpier country. Iran was the trouble all along, and they still are the trouble today. So sometimes we don't want to like finish the deal. We sort of like we play with the deal, so there's a constant war going on. And Iran has been the problem since day one, but they don't attend to it correctly.
Was that before Reagan? We were dealing. I remember Palestine when I was a kid. Hearing us having problems with Palestine, and I remember Iran. I don't remember when I was a kid
Jimmy Carter was the president just prior to Ronald Reagan.
Okay.
And they had the failed attempt to rescue the hostages, which led to the famous movie, the whole 9 yards.
Yes.
And because of that, the helicopters crashed. We lost a lot of soldiers. They weren't really prepared enough. The military was not healthy financially. It didn't have a lot of state-of-the-art crafts. A lot of soldiers died. May they rest in peace. So there was a whole bunch of rah going on. I'm going to speed up the storyline. So Reagan gets elected because they wanted more power. They wanted more meat to the government, and they wanted more meat to the military power again. So that's why they were looking for a fight. It takes the pressure off. And it keeps the military machine, when it's working, throws lots of money back in the economy.
The military-industrial complex.
Exactly. It's been around since Eisenhower talked about it on video and stuff. Yeah, so anyway, also related to the military-industrial complex, as we were talking about, a lot of this feeds a lot of money back to people who are in cahoots, you might want to say, with members of the Republican Party, because we had the vice president who was in charge of the food services and a lot of things, Dick Cheney's companies and all that stuff. So war is a good moneymaker.
People profiteer off war.
They really do. I mean, soldiers die because they're defending the flag and stuff, but it's a little deeper than because it's bigger than just one. It's not like World War I and World War II and Korea or whatever it might be. These wars that are happening today are a lot different, and it's beyond me to even comment on them. But I just don't know what to say, sorry. It just throws a red flag out there.
No. I think you said enough.
Sure.
So here's my second question I have to ask. Can the conspiracy theories actually come from Al Qaeda, and other terrorist factions in an attempt to destabilize the United States of America?
Yeah, of course it's going that way. Of course. We see it right now in 2020. For whatever it's worth, there obviously is something going on with the Russians and some of the other influences that are happening, and the Chinese influences and the North Korean influences. The Russians are sitting back, and the Chinese are sitting back. They're going, look, we don't have to. This is me just prophesizing here, or hypothetically considering options.
Yeah.
We don't have to fire a rocket at America because the system is so volatile right now in this country.
I can definitely understand that.
A theory of that.
Yeah, no, definitely. Because what is a nation? It's the people.
Right.
It's the society. So if there's discontent amongst the people, you're going to have discontent in the nation.
Right.
People are not going to trust the leaders. People are not going to trust their fellow man. And that is the prime time to really destabilize a government. And especially if you have a weak leadership, or no leadership at all, and you have terror, the politics of terror just running through the streets, people very uncertain. Like, that's the type of things that cripple a nation.
Yeah. Because you start to rot from within.
Yeah. And these conspiracy theories saying that the CIA, the DOJ, like the executive branches, like the Senate, Congress, all these people had a hand in bringing about the destruction and blood on American soil. That will make you not trust your government.
Yeah, that's what happens. That's exactly the reason. All right, so tell me some more stuff, man.
Yeah, so the Twin Towers falling by way of tactical demolition. Wasn't at ground zero. I don't know. There's civil engineers out there that claim that the way the towers fell and the way it was filmed in the footage that we have, they believe that it was tactical demolition.
Yeah, I heard a lot about that. Look, what was the name of the tower that actually fell about a day later or so? It was World Trade Center Tower 5 or 6, whatever it was.
The World 7 Trade Center?
7 or 5. It was one of those. Yeah. Okay.
No disrespect at all.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but you know what we're talking about. I mean, like a day and a half, 2 days later, that building on the side, significantly shorter, just decides to implode the same way the 2 did. Okay. It went down through the center, everything did the whole 9 yards, and people are going like, what's going on here? What's up? It startled everybody.
Yeah.
And I think that really started to make people wonder if there was too much data that was stored in that particular tower. And they said, let's destroy it now while we can, because the investigations are going to be too insane. It didn't get hit with anything. There's no reason why it would have fallen. There was no fire. The World Trade Center, the 2 trade centers that fell, 1 and 2, they did not cause any damage to the structure of that building. That thing just fell on an afternoon. There's footage for it. Makes me wonder also.
Yeah, see, these are these things that I can only speculate on from not being there. And here's the thing about statistics. There are people who can cobble together a bunch of statistics that will point you to one narrative. And then you can have people that cobble statistics together that'll make you look in a totally opposite narrative. Without having an in-depth knowledge in the background of, structural engineering, I don't personally know. And it will behoove me to just kind of blow it off as just saying, nah, man, maybe it just fell, maybe it's something we didn't know. So I guess that bit of uncertainty, at least for me, will just have to stay in the air, Yeah,
we have a good friend of ours. His name is Nick. He's an architect, and I brought it up to him a couple of years ago, and he actually he gave me some impressions that he didn't think there was really anything fishy on it. And he understands how structures are designed and whatnot. Now, obviously, not something as large as the towers, but I mean, the way the towers were supposedly built is they had an exoskeleton, and everything's added to the outside of the skeleton. It's built in a lot different way. It's probably cost effective, and it saves a lot of time. It's still a solid structure, but once the domino effect takes place, it kind of goes fast. One of the things is like the imprint of everything once it fell to the ground is one thing that I thought was kind of bizarre, because instead of falling and covering like an absolutely mega massive space, it was all relatively contained in one particular area. I know it fell upon itself, it imploded and fell into itself, but if that had swayed this way or that way, like a regular building falls, we've seen these movies, the building topples.
But that
it would have damaged the other tower, right?
But they're movies, though.
No, I mean, like in the old days, I mean, this is a more modern structure. It was built with some new technology. Like any kind of particular movie you see, usually a building kind of topples and they fall. These things didn't fall like that. They sort of went in.
Yeah, but what I'm saying
is... Nick says they might have been designed that way.
Yeah, what I'm saying is, whatever buildings that they use in the movies, we don't know how the building was built.
And they're older, too.
Yeah. So we don't know. That's got to play a part into it. So I can't. So once again, I personally have to leave it up to just theory. Yeah, but that plays a lot into it.
Yeah, I would go with what you're talking about myself. I'm only throwing some data out there that I've heard, so you can weigh the odds. But I mean, what do I really know? It just it happened. I was in shock.
We're just theorizing anyway.
Yeah.
So how about this? Was Osama bin Laden an American asset? So that was one that was floating around.
Well, he was originally.
Do we know that?
Yeah.
So
That's what we talked about. I'm talking like not like 2 weeks before the planes hit the towers. I mean, in the early days, they tried to back them a little bit because they realized that their militia would be able to fight some of the other militias that are out there. They thought it was, they realized he was fairly intelligent. He was trained in the United States of America. He went to college and he was a smart guy. But he was a Muslim.
So you're saying it's that Friedrich Nietzsche quote, the best weapon against an enemy is another enemy.
Correct. We've done it a lot of times. When we backed the Shah of Iran back in the 70s, which led to the hostage situation.
Okay.
We talked about the failed rescue attempt under Jimmy Carter's tenure as the President of the United States of America. We were working with the enemy, but eventually that became the enemy.
Okay.
So we did in Vietnam. We give guns, we give money, we give bullets and guns to the South Vietnamese.
We invest in
Correct.
allies who become future enemies, even though they're kind of enemies at the same time.
Well, because you're kind of using them to hope to destabilize the force you're against.
Yeah, let them to destroy themselves.
Correct. Because they're a little dangerous. That's been done since the Roman days, right?
Now let me bring in a sidebar. I didn't find in any of my research that I did today any evidence that Osama bin Laden was trained or ever visited or ever touched down on American soil. So I'm just saying, from my personal knowledge, I didn't come across that. I know Michael. I think Michael Moore had it in his Fahrenheit 9/11, and it's in the conspiracy theory Reddit files and shit. But I just didn't personally see it.
Well, I mean, thank you for correcting me if I'm wrong. I know that he's a learned fella. The general.
Yeah, no,
I just assumed he had, so he might have come to America.
Yeah.
But I know some of the gentlemen that were flying the planes, the males that were flying the airplanes, they studied in flight schools in Florida and in America and all that stuff. I
did hear that.
Yeah. So Bin Laden was originally from a family that actually had money. They had some political ties. They were a well-to-do family and whatnot. So he probably studied in either England, feasibly, or some better schools in Europe. And I'm sorry if I erroneously said America or whatever it is, but he was trained, obviously. He's a smart guy. He wasn't just some bumpkin. He was definitely an intelligent, assassin. So look, you brought up something earlier. You said to me real fast. You said to me, you brought up the fact that one of the other conspiracies was that obviously a missile of some nature was delivered and shot towards the Pentagon.
Yeah, from American soil.
Yeah, that's an interesting one there. I've read some on that, but I'm not up on that as much as I should be. I mean, I did hear about the way it hit the building and how it did everything it did. It wouldn't have been a plane. It would have caused more damage if it was a plane, There was a lot of damage though. It went a bunch of layers into the Pentagon.
Yeah, and like I said, once again, not being there and not being on site, I can only speculate or theorize. But this is my thing, and this is another question I had to ask, and then maybe I can tie it together with this. Now, could America or higher ups in America be that ruthless to spill American blood on American soil? And if they are, would they not be smart enough or cunning enough to be able to masquerade it? I just feel like even feel like even in 2001, you couldn't really hide anything of that nature and that level. People were walking around with cameras and cell phones.
It was happening. It wasn't as widespread.
It wasn't as widespread. It wasn't one in every hand now.
So some of the theory is that you're saying it wasn't necessarily shot from a van by a Muslim necessarily. It was done by an American operative to actually kind of stir the flames. Yeah. Is that some of what you're saying, more or less?
Pretty much. That's what the theorists are saying.
Well, dude, look at that. Like you just said a moment ago before I interjected, there's no way in the world that could have happened. Because that thing would have had to park. Somebody would have saw it. That's the Pentagon. There's more cars and activity. I've driven around that area before. My brother Jeff lives down there. There's freeways going everywhere. Yeah. It's not like out in Hamburg, New York or something where it's quiet. That theory I don't really know a lot about. But then again, if there was cameras, like you said, somebody would have saw it. How come nobody saw the rocket or the airplane that supposedly crashed?
This is why it's a conspiracy.
That's a fishy
theory.
one. That's a sticker right there. That makes me wonder. That's a sticky one.
So fun fact, now, the JFK assassination that happened on November 22nd, 1963. Most of us know this. So there is a conspiracy theory that the CIA invented the term conspiracy theory after the JFK assassination to kind of quell those who didn't believe the official version that was given to the media and the public at the time. What do you think about that?
I'm not surprised. I mean, that is it's semi off topic, but it's still related because it's a great topic. Something was not right about that whole assassination. It doesn't matter if there was like one shooter, two shooters, whatever.
Yeah.
The bottom line is something wasn't right. What's his name in the damn book depository up there? He's training in Russia to shoot guns. He's hanging out with the mafia. He knows the Russians. Look, everybody and their brother-in-law was involved in that. The mystique of the mafia and everything else that was going on in Cuba and Russia was big at that time. This is the missile crisis era, which was 61.
Okay.
Kennedy gets it in 64. He gets assassinated. Yeah, something wasn't right.
63.
I'm sorry, late 63, November 63. Sorry about that.
No, yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah, that's fine.
Something ain't right with that whole thing. And
so it's definitely plausible.
anything's plausible in that. I mean, they've gone to court. They've looked at the Magruder film, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
I'm not buying it. Something was not right with the assassination. I'm not going to dwell on this because we're talking about 9/11, but we had four major people died in the 1960s. We had Robert Kennedy and John F. Kennedy. We had Martin Luther King, and we had Malcolm X. Now is that a conspiracy that four major players in the rights for Black Americans all die in one particular fucking decade? Something's up, dude.
Yeah.
Come on now.
Yeah.
I'm sorry we went off track there a little bit, but yeah.
Yeah.
CIA, the government, I don't know what to say really. I love this country, but I don't really know what to say.
Yeah, no, you definitely said enough. So, You got something to say?
No, I'm just going to dwell. I'm thinking about the situation.
No.
I'm done.
Save that for offline.
I'm going to say that. I've said all I wanted about the assassinations that happened in this.
Okay, so just thinking about, fear, what that fear inspired, and kind of the legacy, obviously, that it left, and how it changed our country. 9/11, the 9/11 attacks. Do you think that we've healed as a nation from it, or do you think in your mind are we still reeling from those attacks?
We haven't learned a thing from it because earlier in our episode we talked about, and I think you believe the same thing. I think it's everything that we see today is all part of a few different factors. There's technology, there's the internet, there's TV streaming, there's our elected officials, the politicians. They have all the people in America fighting against each other at loggerheads, and they put the two different parties against each other. It takes the pressure off what the real problems are, which is the government for the most part. And have we learned anything? No. What we did learn is we learned how to be even more meaner towards each other. Because even though we're trying to solve problems with the black situation that we're trying to take care of, everything becomes a linchpin and a hot spot and a hot point. And we learned anything? No. What the powers that be that control the whole system, what they learned the most, because they got the most power, is we're going to play these people like a fiddle, black and white, and we can do what we want. It's all related to the 1% that rules the country and how our elected officials are all sold out. Everything's, they'll throw money into, like right now, they're going to have another one of these bills to throw $1,200 out to people and an extra $600 a week towards their unemployment. It's like welfare. You keep the people
pacified.
Quiet. Yep, you keep them pacified. You can do what you want because everything's all designed to now protect, which is the 1% of America. It's not the 10% or the 7 or the 3. It's the 1% of America that rules the country. They have enough money. They rule the government.
Yeah,
we're in the fall of look at Rome had the fall of the Roman Empire, right? We're in the throes of the fall of the American Empire.
Ooh, that's kind of doomsday. I agree that we haven't learned a lot as far as domestic terrorism. I don't believe, but I do believe that we've become more embracing of different cultures and different ethnicities on some level.
Well, yeah, there is some progress. I'm not saying it's all negative, sir.
My thing is, I don't know if judging it by the mean, if it was the natural progression of people, just the advent of social networking, that people just, I can see other people from different races. This guy is cool. Or was it the lasting impression and effects from 9/11? Because, like we talked about, in the previous episode, there was a lot of hate. You know, there was a lot of xenophobia, and there was a lot of fear centered around, you know, Muslims that were, you know, based in America, Muslims who were living in America.
Yeah, remember what they went through? Yeah.
Yeah, you know, they went through a lot of hate crimes, you know, unjustly, you know, especially if there were citizens that came here, you know, got established and, you know, were law-abiding citizens contributing back to society. They just got that hate, that initial news media, everybody saying that it's you, so I'm just going to attack anybody that looks like you. But I think as a nation, to some degree, we got over that. And I guess the last thing I want to say, and since we kind of we talked a little bit about JFK, I guess I want to give a JFK quote.
Please.
And it goes, "War will exist until the distant day when the conscientious objector enjoys the same prestige that the warrior does today." That was John F. Kennedy.
That's some serious stuff.
Yeah,
I never heard that quote.
Yeah.
That's a good one, man.
Yeah, think about that. I'm gonna say it one more time. War will exist until the distant day when the conscientious objector enjoys the same prestige that the warrior does today.
Wow, that's powerful, man. Yeah, so anyway, since this episode is sort of wrapping up a little bit, and I just want to put a little final thought here out to the public and stuff.
Go ahead, brother.
I think in many ways our government is, and I love our government. I'm an American true and true, and so are you. I think it's a little out of step. I think it doesn't totally understand the voluminous steps and things that it takes to actually cope with the fact that the world's changing a lot, and America and people of color. You got to get a better grip on the you know the population of the United States of America, and I think a lot of things that are connected to what we saw in 9/11 that transpired, it was sad, and all the death and everything else that took place, is just maybe to understand people better. It sounds simple, but I think that's it, man. What do you think? You know,
I think you got it. So I just want to say thank you, everybody, for listening to this episode. If you listen to it entirely, thank you for all the new fans, old fans, everybody. God bless the dead, everybody that died on 9/11, everybody that gave their life.
Rest
God bless
in
this
peace.
country. God bless the United States of America. You know, sincerely, thank you very much.
beautiful episode, man.